part in the entire system. But the children will not be able to reform the system, and I think that they are the parents, as you indicated, the administrators and the teachers within the system. And let's look at those three elements and think in terms of how best can we go about bringing about some kind of reform. Dr. Hawley, given this idea of parents playing a very, very important part and the community playing a very, very important part, how do you see administrators and teachers in this whole aspect of reform, and what should be their responsibilities?
Of teachers and administrators?
Teachers and administrators in terms of reform.
Well, the key to this is, and I'm not just saying this because of my colleague here, but teachers are the key to this, and every parent really knows that. Worry very much about whose class is my child going to be in. And that means we have to pay teachers a decent salary. We have to create conditions where they can use their expertise. And we have to do something serious about their education. Frankly, although we do our best in teacher education and so forth, we invest less in the professional development of teachers than any company worth its salt invests in its people. And for that matter, we invest less in our teachers than is true in other countries. We talk a lot about Japan and their student performance. We don't talk about Japanese teachers and the respect that they receive in the community, and also the kind of support they get for their own learning. We don't think of teachers learning, but teachers have got to learn as well as kids. And then administrators, of course, play a crucial role in creating those environments that support effective teaching. A principal does not teach. A principal does not directly change the lives of children. He or she creates the condition which allows teachers to do that.
Now, quite a bit has been said about diversity, I think, Ms. Vincent, in education, and you mentioned earlier, at-risk children. What can the system do to bring about a greater diversity among the various students in various elements of the school system?
Well, I think the community can be sensitive to the needs of at-risk kids. At-risk kids need more in terms of they need different kinds of experiences.
How would you describe an at-risk kid? I mean, I think that would be instructive.
Okay. I would say an at-risk kid is a child who comes from a home where there are not a lot of books, and they've not had many experiences. They don't get a chance to go on trips and to be exposed to some of the other kinds of things that the other children would be. Maybe suburban kids would be. Some things that you really take for granted that children would have that experience. Well, we call them at-risk kids, but they're the same kinds of kids who are probably on a free lunch, on the free lunch program, and probably have not been read to. They might be from a single-parent family, which does not mean that they have to be at risk because they're from a single-parent family. But many times they are children who have to take the responsibility of other brothers and sisters, and maybe not able to have all of the kinds of health care needs that they should have. And I suppose that's what we're talking about, at risk or poor kids or disadvantaged, all of those names. We're talking about the same kinds of kids who need to have, who should be entitled to all of the educational opportunities that any of the other children are. And then this gets back to parental involvement. Now we talk about suburban schools, or schools where parents can afford to give the schools a lot of support. Well, in cases like that, well, these children would be exposed to more. I mean, you have all the things you need to work with. If you've got parents who can afford to put big bucks into the schools, well, that makes a difference. And then I guess we have to talk about discipline and violence in schools where you don't have a lot of extra resources. For instance, art and music and drama and many extracurricular activities. These are the kinds of things that will help children to see themselves, will see role models or see themselves as being somebody else other than the people that they see on the streets every day.
Very good resources, Dr. Hawley, and I think most of the things that Mrs. Vincent mentioned can be sort of summarized in terms of financial resources in a real sense. How do you see the responsibility of the various areas, the state government, the local government, and finally the federal government, in providing those resources? And do you feel that there is less of an opportunity for resources today than at prior time, or do we have an opportunity for greater resources? How do you see that as a problem?
I think one of the central problems in American education is that we have so decentralized the funding process that we have introduced enormous inequality. Again, we compare ourselves to other nations in achievement level, but we are the most unequal of all industrialized nations in the funding of our schools. So that implies that both the state and the federal government have to take more responsibility for funding, to expect that a small town with no tax base can provide the same quality education even with state funding. I mean, you just say it out loud, you say that doesn't make any sense. And we can't, we talk a lot about urban kids, but we're about rural kids, and a lot of kids are kind of in between and lost in the process. And in this state, we spend significantly less on our children than we do in many other states. We're in the, certainly in the lower end of the distribution, and that's got to change. And, but basically, the answer is that it really is the responsibility of the people, and it comes back to something as Vincent said earlier, and that is, unless people really do believe that education will determine what the quality of life will be in America, really believe that. In a way, I think we don't really believe it. We say it a lot, but we don't. Then we're not going to get those changes.
We're simply giving lip service to